Right.
So
Thank you.
some mimer from that the Rebbe said in 5742 Dr. Nabez. It's based on it's based on the 12th chapter of the 20 chapters of the series of Ohr Ayn Sof that every year the Rebbe would explain another one of the chapters. Since we are in the fourth cycle of studying Basi L'gani, since the Rebbe introduced that in 1951, and this year is the 12th mimer, the 12th chapter in the cycle, so we'll be learning that the Rebbe said on the 12th chapter in 1982, 5742. The Rebbe is going to really sum up the first 11 through that for like a page of the 12th chapter. The first 11 chapters are relatively easy and familiar, and we will go through that quickly. The first 2.5 pages. Also, again, I've come to my garden. My sister, my bride. Maybe I'll just going to come out more valuable. Hemshech Basi L'gani brought about this to watch this yard check this series that he published it. It was published in honor of that shvat, so that was the yard check of his grandmother, the Rebbe's certificate, but it came out to his own yard as well. Then was also meant to be learned that the Rebbe says also in the following. Because of Met Shrab, what it says in Met Shrab on the spots in Shirajidim, Basi L'gani. What does it mean, L'gani? Why does it say L'gani? My cards? The Genuni. The Genuni means my special place, my unique place, my place where my bridal chamber, my place that I meet up with in my most enjoyable, pleasurable union. The place that I was there initially. In other words, that Hashem is talking about when he descended on Har Sinai and he gave us the Torah. So it's not something new that Hashem came down here for. He didn't come down to a new place that he's never been here before, but it's L'gani, my garden, the place that I was here originally. So the primary level, the Shechina was down here below. And afterwards, I built it to him through untoward actions, negative actions, inappropriate actions. The Shechina left this world that was its original place, and it went up above. Until 7 tzaddikim came along. And they brought down the Shechina from above to below, starting with Avraham Avinu and concluding Vashabah Moshe till Moshe came along. That he was the seventh. Shebahem amongst the 7 tzaddikim, he was the seventh, and we know because even all the sevens have special favor in the eyes of Hashem. L'gani, and he brought the Shechina back down to my garden. Low, flat, chain this is nothing lower than nothing is afterwards. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu did it then, this is constantly accomplished now through the tzaddikim, like it says in the pasuk, Yishkenu la'ad aleha, that they make the everlasting one dwell upon it. And tzaddikim does not mean necessarily of someone like that we would call tzaddik in our colloquial usage of it, but rather the koyal amichul tzaddikim. It refers to your nation who is all entirely tzaddikim. Concerning every single year, it says that the Torah was commanded to us from Moshe, who then brought it down as an inheritance for the congregation of Yankiv. Meaning every single yid has the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu gave them, and therefore they are drawing down the level of the everlasting one, the one that resides and lives forever upon it. I knew that means that all the yid that they return and draw down the Shechina down here below in a way of an everlasting nature. That's why it says Yishkenu la'adala, the everlasting one, meaning they bring it down in such a way that it's going to be everlasting and forever. Though this hamshachah that's accomplished through the service of the sublimating the klippa and transforming the klippa in this in such a way that the glory of the Eibishter becomes revealed in all the world. Similar to the day of the passing of a tzaddik that's also called the Stalvos. And in court, the Hemshech explained at the beginning of the Hemshech in a footnote over there. Even though it uses the word istalik, and istalik usually means depart, but still in all, in this case, it means such a powerful, great revelation of light that is so high, and therefore, because such a high light and such a great revelation that is not measured, not bounded according to vessels, therefore, it's called istalik. That's how powerful revelation is. That's why it's called by the term istalik. The great quality, the advantage that there is in this revelation that's accomplished through subjugating, through transforming. But the Damshach should also be in the low matter in the physical world. So it's not just enough that the Shekhinah came down on Ohr Ayn Basi L'gani, but afterwards, after Ohr Ayn, we were commanded to make a mission. That was this comes with command. Make me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell among them. Take 13 things, 15 things that are enumerated over there, Parshas Truma, from which the mission was made. They are physical things of this low world. And we turn it into a sanctuary. All of them are concerning the Mikdash. It says, I will dwell. It's a Mishkan. It's a place of dwelling that's called a sanctuary. Sanctuary is called a place of dwelling. In other words, the Rebbe says that they're the same thing. Whether we call them Mikdash, what's called a Mishkan, it's both holiness and it's both the idea of godliness coming down here. And days that are going to through the Hashem residing within them. It says, I will dwell within them, the plural. So this means within each and every Yid, believe it, will have to be strong heart of every single Jewish person. All of them are concerning every single Jewish person. It says, that all who are benevolent of heart will bring the donations from Mishkan. That's what the 13 and 15 things from the Mishkan came about. I will try to correct that problem about the unclarity. Hold on for a second. Let me see. I will now change it from a speaker to my phone speaker. I hope this is better. You let me know if it's better now.
It's
better
excellent.
Now. Okay.
Excellent.
It says, Ois Beis on page Mishkan, primary thing of the Mishkan, the primary building of the Mishkan are the boards, the beams from which the Mishkan was made. That you will make the boards and the beams from the Mishkan, Shittim wood stand, fire bazem, and the Friedrich Rebbe explains in his Maimer, Sha'atzi Shittim hu gam Lashon Shtus. The Shittim wood is also from the word Shtus, folly, foolishness. Shazel Shamar Azal, this is what Chazal say, ain't all the a person does not transgress an Aveda unless it enters into him a spirit of folly. Because if not for the spirit of folly, if not for the Ruach Shtus, every single Yid, it's not possible for him to do, heaven forbid, a matter that's not according to the will of the Creator. Like the Zohar says, a soul that will sin, and the Zohar says about that says in the beginning of Parshas Vayikra, so the Zohar says, don't read it with a just straight, but read it tava, put a question mark in it. Nefesh kisechta, could it be a soul that sins? Even something that was a sin done inadvertently, because that's what most of the karbanos that talks about over there. Karbanos are brought for an inadvertent sin, for a sin that's done b'shoigig, an unintentional sin. So even if it's only shoigig, which is techtable vad, so still in all, that is a surprise, that's a shock, that's unusual that you should do that. Since to tzaddik, no evil, no bad will occur to him. So therefore, every yid we established before, amichum tzaddikim. So therefore, it's very unusual that a yid should even happen to him by mistake to do an accidental sin. This is something that actually awakens the question in the Torah of truth, the Torah of Chaim, the Torah of life. And so therefore, the only reason that's possible the person can sin, whether unintentional or worse, that's only because the shtus, because the foolishness. Shittim lashon shtus, like we said, the shittim wood is from the expression of shtus. This is also kosher and sheker oil, and this is connected with the falsehood of the world. But Friedrich Rebbe explains in the Maimer that the word for karoshim, keresh, is the same letters like the word sheker, which means falsehood. Though the truth of Avaya is in the world. In other words, that the truth is that the world is godliness, which maybe like the Rambam brings down the idea, the emes Avaya, of the truth of Avaya. The first chapter of the beginning of the Rambam, the laws are the foundation of the Torah, that the truth of Hashem is the world, and the truth of Hashem is everlasting. Still in all, this matter is in the way of concealment, the covering, and it's necessary to meditate on it with our Chachma Bina Das. And the brackets that Rebbe brings from the expression of the Rambam, different languages that he's using that indicates that you use your Chachma, use your Bina, use your Das, to be able to realize and uncover the truth, that the truth is that Havaya is really the truth of this world. Skip over the parentheses, the brackets, 2 lines. So you need to have this meditation with one's Chabad to nullify the concealment and the covering, and to reveal from this a truth. That's the idea of making the boards and the beams of the Mishkan from shittim wood. We take the folly of klippim that's connected with the falsehood of the world. The opposite of the idea of the truth of Hashem is forever. The oisim, and you turn it into, you transform it into kroshim, the Mishkan, into boards and beams that which the Mishkan is built on. The oisim, the kroshim, gomer oimdim in such a way that the kroshim are standing. That the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe emphasized in the Mamorim, there's ways of using beams and pieces of wood, but you can use it like you make a log cabin. A log cabin, the wood is lying down one on top of each other. Here, the point is that they're standing tall. What's the idea of standing tall? The Rebbe is going to compare it to what it says about the Malachim, that the Malachim are oimdim. It's a medrash, like it's brought down the medrash Akroshim, oimdim, and betugas srafim oimdim malach. The medrash compares it to the Malachim, that the kroshim that were standing, the beams and the boards that were standing in the Mishkan, are similar and akin to the Malachim that are called standing above him, meaning that's a very high level that the standing boards of the Mishkan symbolize and indicate. And even more so, it's also added to it the advantage of going amongst those that are standing. Meaning, we know that Malachim are those that are standing still, and then Neshama, especially down here below, is considered a traveler. He's not standing in one place. He's always going in increasing in a way that even Malachim can never increase, and even in a way that Neshamas above can increase. So since it's a Yid that's building the Mishkan, so he doesn't just have the advantage of Oimdim, of the Malachim, but he has also the advantage of Mahalchim. The Kivin, Shein is a Nas idea by the Sa'ad, since this is accomplished through the service of a person, like it says, you shall build it, you shall make the Mishkan. That a Yid is the one that causes the transforming of darkness to light and bitter to sweet. Therefore, it's in the way of an increase and greater than what the Malachim do. by selfish in a way that and such an increase that's incomparable and way above and beyond. Until it becomes in a way that I dwell there in a way that's beyond all measure and boundary. That's the idea that says Basi L'gani, that my garden is referring to Gnuni, my special place, my innermost chamber. It's idea of a home. What's the idea of a home? The idea of a home is that the one who lives in the home is there in his entire essence, in his entire being. Like the pasuk says concerning the Beis Hamikdash, although the heavens and the heavens of heavens cannot contain you. Also, but yet this home can contain you. That's what it means benichusa. Some read it that it's can this house contain you? No. The Rebbe is reading it. It could contain you, that the Mikdash is able to contain Hashem in his very essence because it's a dira for Hashem. It's a home for Hashem. The Mishkan becomes, I dwell amongst them. It's in the heart of everyone. They call the Mishkan, and also through every benevolent of heart, so every donating heart. It happens also in the Mishkan that's called the sanctuary. Until it literally means the Beis Hamikdash, not just the Mishkan that was temporary. Until the third Beis Hamikdash, the Gula Mitzvah Shlem and the true and complete redemption of Meir Yemein Mamash, and in very speedy days from Mashiach Tzidkenu. Now he's continuing the summary of the Friedrich Rebbe's Mamar. Gim. To be able to transform the foolishness and the foul, which means, well, we said before, and boundary, and we're drawing down godliness beyond measure and boundary. The last boy from the Mahalch Beinoim to transform from the falsehood of the world, to make from the standing beams, that they should be more than just standing, but should be in a way of they're going amongst standing. In other words, an increase without limitation. There's a need to battle and fight a war with the world, and to fight a war with the Klippa and the Sitrach and the Shtus of Klippa. They'll not say Muhammad to be able to be victorious in the world war. That's my nefesh. We need to awaken and inspire the essence of the soul. Then the person will surely be victorious, because with the essence of the soul, one can overcome all types of obstacles. What's the idea behind this? Isa Medrash brought down the Medrash. When is Hashem called by the name Tzvakos? Because of his battles that he goes to war with Rishayim. By days of through Hashem's shame, Tzvakos, and Hashem's battling of the Rishayim, it becomes awakened also the idea of the one who's the everlasting of Yisrael will not be false. In other words, instead of having the falsehood of Klippa, we have the truth. The opposite of the falsehood of the world. To affect the victory in the war that is run through the hosts of Hashem. So in other words, Hashem is called Tzvakos, and Yidden are called Tzvakos because we are fighting Hashem's war with the power of Hashem's essence that reveals the power of our essence that's in us. That they are Yidden are called by the name Tzivus Havayim. At the end of last week's parsha, they're called when they went out of the land of Mitzrayim, which is the first Golus, and therefore it epitomizes what all the war that we have to go through every single time we're in Golus. And from then, since we went out of Mitzrayim at the end of last week's parsha, every single Yid and the entire Jewish people becomes those that are going in the army. They are members of Hashem's army. He fulfills his job. I was created to serve my Maker.
Well, specifically in this low world, to illuminate the darkness of this world. How is that so? How does he accomplish that? Through being victorious in the war. With that, he's fighting with the darkness and the concealment. For this sake, to be able to take on the darkness of the world and to be able to be victorious and reveal the essence, so that you need to have the spending and the giving out of Hashem's treasures, like we see in the kingship down here below on this earth. All of his treasures and the treasures of his forefathers that usually he doesn't use it for his own needs. Still, in all this case, for the sake of the war, he uses them in such a way. He doesn't just use them, but he completely spreads them out. He completely spends them without any concern. Giving them out to the people going to war, to the soldiers. Just in a similar manner above, that there's the oitz, or the treasure of Hashem, that they're given to the army of Hashem. What is that treasure? That's of the person can like explain it in a different place. Okay, another thing is the oitzer klolus in Baruch Hu, the general idea Hashem assists the person, like we have in Tanya and we had not long ago about the Bain, he has the assistance of Hashem. Through that, we are victorious in the war. God life in the Pada B'Shalom Nafshi to such a degree that with peace our soul is redeemed. Before become a kindness, like explained in many places, the true idea of redemption and peace is there's no need even for war. He redeems in peace, so I don't have to go to war. Similar to was in the days of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo Shmoi, it says in the pasuk, his name is Shlomo, v'shalom v'sheket et Yisrael b'yamav, and I will give peace and tranquility upon the Yidden in his days. So there was no war that Shlomo had to fight to be able to have peace. The peace was there in a way of no war at all whatsoever. Seder is even more so. There's a greater level of Pada V'Shalom, a greater way of peace that's going to be will be the final redemption from this final exile. The coming of Mashiach. Okay, up till now was a summary of the first 11 chapters. Now the Rebbe is going to talk about chapter 12. I'm going to skip around a few of the brackets and parentheses so we should be able to get through most of this. Page Chavzai. Mamshech Levayra Perikut Beis continues to explain in chapter 12. Skip the brackets till like 5 lines down or 6 lines down. Inyan Oitzel Maila. The Friedrich Rebbe explains what's the idea of a treasure by Hashem. Based on what it says in the Zohar. Ohr Ayn Sof L'maila Maila the Ketz L'mata Mata the infinite light of Hashem goes up upon high to no end and reaches down below to no end as well. That the level of a treasure is that which is so high to no end. Like later on, after chapter 12, he explains. How can we appreciate the great quality and how unbelievable this oitzer is? That is, first explains the great advantage and the great quality of the going down below to no end. By explaining that, by explaining this level of the going down below to no end, that will help us later on in the Hemshech to understand this idea about the L'maila the Ketz, the true idea of the oitzer. Once we understand the great advantage and how powerful the Ohr Ayn Sof is, that it reaches down so much below, so from this will be understood by a way of how much more so the idea of how high it is to no end. That's the level of the idea of the oitzer of the treasure. Now he's going to go on to explain further about the rest of the Maimon is really going to focus on this concept of Lamata Mata Aden Tachlis. What does this mean? Bayer, and he explains Shapiro, Hashem, Ohr Ayn Sof. What is the meaning of the name Ohr Ayn Sof? Skip the parentheses. Ohr Ayn Sof, that the light itself is infinite. How come? Why would the light be infinite? Who the reason for this is, because since the light is similar to the luminary, to the source where it comes from, though it's only a ray, it's not the essence. This is its advantage, that it's similar to the luminary. Since the essence, which is the luminary, the essence of Hashem, is completely pure, without parts. Pshitus means non-complex, not made up of parts, and it's infinite. Skip the parentheses. Also, the light that is similar to the luminary, is also infinite. That's what means the light which is infinite. Even the light itself is without an end. Excuse me. So once we identified what the Ohr Ayn Sof means, so now we can explain what does it mean that it reaches down below to no end. Even the way it comes down very much below, even though it's coming down and it's going through symptom and so on, as we're going to explain, still and all, down here, it manifests characteristics of the infinite, even though it's in a limited world down here. So he says, this means the matter. Though to be able to be the entire existence of something down here below, there had to be a symptom, there had to be a constriction and a contraction of Hashem's essence and his light. Became still an all gam, even the way this infinite light of Hashem comes down below to no end. It's in a way that's infinite without boundary. Like the Maimer of the Rebbe goes into the details about it, what character traits of the Ayn Sof express itself down here. The creation, the very fact that the world was created as something from nothing, is one of the effects of the Ayn Sof and so on. Then he says, you say to Mizu, if you say even more so, Hemshech understood from the beginning of the whole series of Amar, and right away the beginning of Basi L'gani, only down here below. Saying over the same through our actions and our service. Skip the parentheses again. It becomes the special place of Hashem's very essence, the dira, the home, the place of his enjoyment. It's even higher than the infinite light of Hashem. So it's not just that the Ohr Ayn Sof comes down here below to no end, but it comes down Hashem's very essence down here. We're closing, but the general idea behind this is, before because Arizal explained it in the Arizal's writing, skip the parentheses again. Initially, the infinite light of Hashem filled all possibility for space. Therefore, there would not have been any room for the worlds to stand. There was necessary to be the idea of Hashem's contraction, constriction, so that there will be a place that afterwards could come down a narrow and a short and constricted line of godliness that emanated from the infinite light of Hashem. And through that finite line, that through that came about the whole entire chain order of descent of all the different worlds until the lowest of the low. And only there, at the end of the line, the lowest place, after the tzimtzumim, that's where we have we affect the community, the place that's very special to Hashem. That over there we call it the bridal chamber, the special dwelling place, the place where Hashem's very essence is to be found. Top of page Chavtes. I say, yes, Akash is a Maimer Yidush. Maybe you see that ain't about Lulu. We connected to the well-known Maimer that the leader of our generation, the one who's Yartzais on Yud brings down Malkmur Azakim from Alter Rebbe a pasuk that says on the pasuk Mika Ba'Elokenu B'chol Kareinu Elav, who is like Hashem our God, that in all who call to it. What does it mean in all who call to him? So it's brought down in the Kabbalah Sefer known as the Pardes. V'isa the Pardes b'Shemus Sifri. It's brought down the Pardes in the name of a medrash called the Sifri. A love b'loy l'midoisa. that all who call to him, but not calling to his attributes. What does it mean to exclude? So the Sifri says it, but the Sifri doesn't explain it. Comes the Pardes, the Kabbalah Sefer, and explains it. Farish Pardes, the Pardes explains, to him is referring to the lights that are enclosed in the vessels, meaning his attributes are the vessels itself. So his attribute of chesed is the keli of chesed, for example, Natsilis. His attribute of strength and might, that's the keli of the vessel of Natsilis. So then when we say we don't address and we don't call or we don't daven to the vessels of Atzilus, we daven to the godly light that is shining through those vessels. That's what it means according to the Pardes, the oil that's in the vessels. That is the explanation of the Pardes. The Baal Shem Tov explains a little bit different. The Baal Shem Tov Pirish, the Baal Shem Tov explained she'elav koy alakus she'ba'kelim gufa. That elav to him is referring to the godliness of the vessels itself. In other words, the vessels have their own power of godliness that create the vessels of Atzilus, that emanate the vessels of Atzilus. Once the power of godliness emanates the vessels of Atzilus, so then there's the lights that are revealed in those vessels. So the Pardes says, who is to him? Him is talking about the godly light that's enclosed in the vessels. The Baal Shem Tov says, Elav is talking about not the vessels themselves, but the divine energy that caused the vessels to come into being. This was the Pardes. Then we have the Baal Shem Tov. Now we're going to have the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is going to explain it on the most simple level. And the simple meaning, the way the Alter Rebbe explains, Elav is not referring to the vessels which are not the lights that make the vessels, not even the lights that come into the vessels. But Elav means literally to him himself, the Hashem's very essence. I love that's what it means to all who call him. The tefillah that the tefillah of every single Jewish man and Jewish woman is not the lights that's enclosed in the vessels, not even the lights the way they are independent of the vessels, rather to Hashem's very essence. Second paragraph on page Chavtes, is a kosher commentator. Baal Shem Tov is also connected with the teaching of Baal Shem Tov. That Hashem made many constrictions through many worlds, so that the person through his service should have a oneness and a union with Hashem. This means through the service of a Yid, there becomes a unity with Hashem that he made many constrictions. We're talking about the union is surpassing all the tzimtzumim. The union is with Hashem's essence that's beyond all those levels that by them it's possible to say, or even possible to negate the idea of tzimtzumim. It means it has some type of relationship with it. So we're talking about Hashem's essence, which is beyond the level of negating. Excuse me. Then he says, it's also understood from the teaching of the Mizrach Magid at the beginning of both of his Sfarim, known as Kutei Amorim and Ohr Torah, that he says that Hashem constricted his brightness, like, for example, a father that constricts his mind and his intellect, and he speaks things of minor content, for his young child, to such a degree that he plays around with his young child. But he move him a pashas is simply understood that this level that Hashem, we're talking about Hashem constricts himself, is talking about a level beyond all types of revelations. This is because it's a result of the essential love of the father to his child. Skip the brackets till the last words of this paragraph. It's from Hashem's very essence. So therefore, it's beyond any types of levels of revelation, and that is the level that Hashem is beyond all those constrictions, and that's what we connect to through our avoid. This is also what's explained in the part known as Sherish Mitzvah Tefillah, concerning the type of love that's characterized by the pasuk, the Mili Bashamayim Implach Pasti Ba'aretz, that who is for me in the heavens, and with you I do not desire in the earth. This is the way it was heard, the expression and the language from the Alter Rebbe while he was davening. Ich will Zagarnit, I don't want anything. Ich will nicht Gan Eden, I don't want you Gan Eden. Ich will nicht Olam Haba, I don't want your world to come. Ich will nicht dich allein. I only want you yourself. So that means going beyond all the levels, reaching to Hashem's very essence, like we were saying before, none of the levels of Giluyim, none of the revelation levels, and so on. By first prefacing what's explained in a sefer of the Middle Rebbe, that when it says, who is to me in the heaven, in other words, Hashem, that he's not even interested on the level of heaven. Heaven is something that encircles and encompasses the earth. So it's the heavens is also referring to the general encompassing light of before the tzimtzum. So the Alter Rebbe said, Mili Bashamayim, I'm not even interested in that level. I'm not even interested in the level of the light that's higher than the tzimtzum. About these movement that's according to understood the words of Alter Rebbe. Ich will say garnish, I don't want anything. Included those the highest, most revelations that are prior to the tzimtzum, which Messiah, but philosophy like he concluded in his davening. I only want you yourself, the very essence of Hashem, which the Rebbe says over here in the parentheses, fits in exactly with what we said before, that Alter Rebbe says, means him himself, not any of his attributes, not any of his revelations, etc. Next paragraph on page Lamed. You can also connect it with the Amarim of the Rebbe Marash of the year Tavich Chav Zayin. Skip 3 lines. That over there it says the Haftali is a deer that's sent that places good words. So the Rebbe Marash asks a question. Yes, we have a question on Virgin Mask. He begins in the feminine. Ayola Shlucha is feminine. Hey, witness the hey at the end. And then he concludes with the masculine. So why is it switched between the feminine and the masculine? I find that Rebbe Marash explains that all the matters after the tzimtzum are like what it says about Moshe Rabbeinu, that his power was weakened like a woman, like a feminine, like a female, because all the levels after the tzimtzum is weak in comparison to Hashem's essence, like it says. Therefore, it says, if you notice this time when it says after the word levadecha, it says ato asisas hashmaim, even though it's read ato, you, but it's spelled at. At chaser hey, ata is missing a letter hey, lashon nekeva to indicate that its at is in the feminine. Because the drawing down of that light that becomes a source for the world. Skip the parentheses. Why they at simsum excluded simsum. That's what it says. Naftali is sent like a deer lashon nekeva in a feminine. Because the idea of davening, which Naftali Naftali is related to the word davening. It's a request. We're davening to Hashem to fill the lack and deficiency that took place in the world because of the constriction of Hashem. We're davening to reach the highest, most elevation and ascent. Beyond the whole category of above and below. Like the davening of the Alter Rebbe that Tzaddik brings in his teaching. Since the Tzaddik brings us down in the name of the Alter Rebbe, so this becomes, since it's Torah, so it becomes a lesson to each one of us, that each one of us should want to have the very essence of Hashem. in such a way that he could be completely united with it with an unbelievable unity. That every single yid that learns the story could come to such a level of avodah, of unity with Hashem's very essence. All I want is you yourself. And all this becomes an actuality through the avodah, but Yud Gimel the test of Barma now, through the avodah and the 13 or the 15 matters from which the Mishkan was made. That these 15 or 13 items include the entire world. That's the general idea of our actions, our service of all matters of this physical world. Lastly, is to make a home for Hashem down here below. Sham Gufa, and over there itself, in this world itself, to make a home into something that's so low that there's nothing below it. For this sake, there was the idea of the constriction. Like explain the mimer that the coming into being of the worlds are through the tzimtzum that was in the infinite light of Hashem. Not just tzimtzum in the singular, that, but like the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that's brought down previously, that Hashem made many tzimtzumim through many worlds. The lashon kama moiral misper bilti mesuyam, because the word many indicates an undefined number. In truth, there is many constrictions to no end. The kivim sheyesh oil mispalim mispar. Since in truth there are worlds that have no number, no count. Skip the parentheses. Therefore, the tzimtzum are also without number. Tzimtzum l'chol olam, for every world that had to come into being, there had to be another constriction. The klal is called tzimtzumim nachlakim, ugimel tzimtzumim klalim. But in general, all these tzimtzumim are divided into three general tzimtzumim. Which is like the Rebbe Rashab explains, that's why they gimel tzimtzumim, that they're coming into being of the world is through three general tzimtzum. The first tzimtzum is from the emanator from Hashem to those that were emanate, meaning the world of that the light was constricted to become down in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, the way it's in the world of Atzilus, skip the parentheses. But Tzimtzum Abei is Matzilus Lobya. And the second symptom of these three general Tzimtzumim is from the world of Atzilus to the world of Bri Yitziras. B'Shem Avaya, L'Shem, Alekim, that you came down from Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei to the name Alekim, Lias Makal Levroim, so it should be a source for all the created beings. But Tzimtzum Agimel, B'Shem Alekim Gufa. And the third Tzimtzum is in the name Alekim itself. That should come into being from the name Elokim itself. Skip the parentheses, but in a way of a concealment and a covering of godliness. And the goal and the purpose of all these constrictions can be like to explain the teaching about Shem Tov. So there should be a oneness and unity with Hashem. And it should call Echad Yisrael. It means every single Jew, B'chol B'nai Yisrael, and the whole entire Jewish people. Yisachtu HaKadosh Baruch Hu should become joined. And such a unity that it's not even possible to divide amongst them. Now the Rebbe concludes, now through our actions and service and all the above, in such a way that we actually use these treasures that the King of Kings, the Eibishter, gives to every single Yid, that every single Yid is a part of the army of Hashem, who fulfills his job. He's victorious in the war through the treasures. Then the true and complete redemption arrives. Then we fulfill the promise that the glory of Hashem will become revealed, and all flesh together will perceive that Hashem spoke. We need the Basi L'gani, that's the idea that I've come to my garden, my special place, my bridal chamber. The place I was there initially, that specifically in this low world, that there's nothing lower than it. the Eretz HaKodesh, primarily the base of Mikdash, the Holy Land, Eretz Asher Goyim and Tamid Ein Hashem Elokecha V'Amarei Shana V'Dachs Shana, the land that the Hebish's eyes in it is constantly in it from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Ve'ein Ini Yotzim De Pshutai, and this doesn't lose its simple meaning. Shebekarav Mamish Helchen Kapnei Yisrael Eretz HaKodesh, that speedily all Yidden go to Holy Land, and Shamas Begufim, souls and bodies, Ben Reinu, the Canaan, Ben same with our youth and elderly, with our sons and daughters. The Kasvam Bazavim Itam, their silver and gold with them. Beruchnis, spiritual silver and gold, which says goes on love and awe of Hashem. Yachtim Kasvam Bazavim Itam Agashmis, along with their silver and gold in the physical sense. The Bonechaim is under the Vichi, for children and life and Parnasa in a comfortable manner. B'simchas olam al roshim, an everlasting joy upon their head. The Gula Mitzvah Shlema de Mashiach that came in the true and complete redemption from Mashiach. Speedily in our day.
Amen.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Rabbi Bart.
Have a great
Welcome.
Thank you, Sima, Zeigebench.
Thank you, Rabbi Bart.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yep,
Thank you.
Yerushalayim.
You're
Last
welcome.
week.
Shkoyach. Zeigen.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thanks.